My name's Dane Krams. I'm from Brisbane, Australia, and I am the author, lead artist, game designer, director, and many other things on Anna's Quest. Way before I was doing any game design, I was doing film. Had a big love for film, and I wanted to be a writer, and then eventually that became editing. But it was mostly just to do storytelling. Storytelling is what I was passionate about. But going into film and then working there for a while, it was a little bit off-putting with all of the on-set politics and budgeting problems and can't do this for this reason and can't do that for that reason. So I started to gravitate more back towards drawing like when I was a kid, because then you don't have limitations anymore. You can just draw whatever you want. You can do whatever story you want. And I didn't have to rely on other people. I could just draw something. So eventually I decided I was going to stop doing film stuff, and I did my master's in design, where I was going to do children's illustrations. But eventually all of my sketches that I was doing in lectures instead of listening to the lectures became game design ideas. Mostly because at the time I was looking at a lot of indie game stuff, and there was a lot of exciting things, and Minecraft had become big and everyone was starting to make an indie game now. And so I was kind of excited by that and wanted to join in, and started to give my own little university sketches their own life and transition my children's storybook into a game instead. Designing Anna's Quest from the very beginning, the sketches I was doing, the very first thing I drew was Anna. And then the bedroom, actually. The first two things I had was Anna and the bedroom. I think they were on the one sketch paper that I had from a lecture. And I don't know, I was sketching a lot of other ideas after that that had nothing to do with Anna's Quest. And when I started to think about what world I was going to first build for the game, I kept going back to that first sketch, and I kind of thought she was cool. This strange girl with this strange eye and hair coming over half of her face. Kind of wanted to know more about her and why she was in this weird bedroom with stuffed bears and a weird machine hanging over a chair. The game, it was never initially considered as big as it is now. When I first started, it was only ever going to be a one-room thing. It was only ever going to be this strange character in this strange situation where she's being kidnapped for some reason. I don't think I knew what reason yet. She was just kidnapped. And the idea was that she was going to have to escape the room. And so I knew I wanted to have something unique about that. I love that all these other indie games had something. They were always trying to push something new into their games. And so I was trying to find something myself. And somewhere along the way, I thought of telekinesis. I was thinking of the verb coins and something unique you could add. They were always doing something like licking or being able to kick something. So I thought, well, what else could I add to that? And it became telekinesis. All of the Brothers Grimm style things and the fairy tales that are incorporated into the game, that really just came about because the original idea was that there was this witch that had kidnapped Anna. I just love witches. I love that kind of fairy tale, dark European setting. And as soon as it became more than just the one bedroom and that world was going to expand, then I had to consider, well, this world has witches, it has kidnapping witches, it has ghosts that you can talk to. So straight away, Brothers Grimm and Hans Christian Andersen and Aesop, all of that kind of comes to mind. And so I started digging through more of them to find more and inspiration, and was just finding all these great characters and settings and situations that were almost making a story and an adventure game world on their own. So as soon as I started reading a lot of these stories, it was quite easy to find where it was going to go. There was plenty of fairy tales that I was reading that I absolutely loved. I mean, I loved Rink Rank's story straight from the start. There's a crazy guy living up in the middle of a mountain, and the poor guy just gets, a woman comes into his home and then flees, and he's the bad guy. So I love Rink Rank. I don't know. when it was around the time when I was first starting to consider how I was going to design the game, that's pretty much when Whispered World came out. And all of a sudden, that was a huge inspiration because it was suddenly like 2D adventure games were exciting again. Everyone was talking about this new 2D adventure game, and you hadn't even seen something like that since Curse of Monkey Island, maybe, which I absolutely loved as well. So there was this big gap where I didn't get to play any of these kinds of games, and then they were back again. So it was definitely exciting in a way that I wanted to be part of that. I knew that other people were still interested in and wanting to play it, and so I wanted to make a Whispered World myself. Getting started on my own actually wasn't that hard at all. I mean, I had no programming experience. I was only ever doing animation and illustration, so I knew I was going to be able to do that to a certain extent, but I had no idea how to actually make a game or put it together. And as soon as I started poking around in forums and asking questions to people, there's such big communities out there that you only need to start asking one or two things and everyone will help you out, and watch a couple of tutorial videos and the next day you can start making a game. It's easy. Why not? Well, when I was starting the game on my own, it was a little trickier because, I mean, I was only doing it for myself. It was more, of course I had my masters. The game was a master's project, but at the end of the day, when the masters was finished, it was just working for myself. So when I suddenly got an email out of the blue from Daedalic saying that they were interested in it, I think from that point on, it felt like I was making something important because I had one of my favorite companies' attention, and especially considering they were the company that motivated me to start in the first place, I felt like I was doing something right. After finishing volume 1 of the game on my own, the idea was that I knew I wasn't going to be able to finish a full game on my own, and some other people were doing it with adventure games like The Journey Down. We're doing a part 1 of 3. So I thought, oh, I'll do that too. I think I had some lofty ideas that I was going to suddenly put out volume 1 and everyone was going to know about it. But I put it out and it had good reviews. Adventure Gamers gave it 4.5 stars, I think, or something. And a lot of people were saying very nice things about it, but it was hard to get it noticed. So it really felt like I was in a position where I wasn't even sure the game was going to get finished. It was frustrating because it seemed that people really liked it, but I just couldn't get it to people. So as soon as Daedalic were catching on to that and they were seeing it and they could see something in it too and they wanted to help turn it into a full game, it was a huge relief. It was very exciting. It felt like it wasn't going to die. It was nice to know that it was going to become a full game after all. I was like, it was hard. I really thought I was like, oh, I guess I'll just stop making the game then. Then you guys were like, come make it with us. I was like, yes. Phew, I'm not unemployed anymore. But now that we are close to the end and everything's all finally coming together, and I'm only just starting to see some of the last pieces coming too now, and every time you see something new and all these last little touches coming together, it feels very exciting. You're seeing it actually alive now instead of just pieces here and there and ideas of what it could be. It's very surreal and exciting and amazing. Yeah, outside of Anna and some of the main characters, I definitely have a bit of a soft spot for some of the hermits in the game, like Rinkrank, living by himself up at the top of Glass Mountain, and the Mill Witch kidnapping kids and eating them. I kind of like that they're just these eccentric and pretty much just lonely people, but you know, they're fun. You get to kind of play on them being eccentric, crazy, lonely people and have fun with it. Making the game on my own, it was hard to stay motivated, I have to admit. You know, I felt like I had confidence in what I was doing, but at the end of the day, I could just stop if it was just for myself. But as soon as I was getting involved with Daedalic, and especially when I started to see some of the artists that were coming on the team and how they were really bringing all this new life that I couldn't have even pictured myself. It was a big motivator for me. It made me start seeing that the game was becoming something bigger than I could have ever hoped for, and it just made me motivated to keep making it bigger and keep making it better and more exciting. Because I knew that it was always going to be, I knew that my style was always kind of like kid friendly, but I did know that I also wanted to do that darker Brothers Grimm style stuff. I kind of just thought it was going to be a nice contrast when I did it as well. I thought maybe it wasn't going to work, but then I thought it would be kind of nice to have this cute style and then all of a sudden have a ghost with no eyes popping out of a skeleton. I always remember that when I was a kid and we had kind of Brothers Grimm style books, you hear the stories as a kid and you kind of pick up on some things from it, but maybe not always the darker stuff. And I always remember looking at the illustrations and being kind of scared by them, these kind of grotesque looking witches and kids in jail cells and things like that. So even with Anna's quest, when we have quite a cute looking style, really, there's a lot of that kind of creepiness underneath a lot of that. We have, I really tried to put as many grotesque witches and kidnapped children and, no. Yes. I really wanted to try and capture some of that feeling, seeing those illustrations as a kid. I wanted to get that grotesque witch and the scared child and the hollowed-eyed ghosts. So with stuff like the gallows, there's a prison and a dungeon setting, and obviously in a dungeon you have gallows and you have executions, but something like that is a little too rough on its own, I suppose. So you want to make that at least a little bit more entertaining and fun, I guess, and so you turn it into a game show. I literally did, I really want to put some executioner stuff in there. And then I thought, maybe I need to make it a bit more bright. I don't even know where I can, because he had the lever for the hanging. So I was like, yeah, you could just pull the lever and something spins and he gets different forms of execution. That's literally all I thought of. That was it. Of course, every adventure game needs a bartender and a tavern. I always had my own idea for bartenders when I was playing other adventure games and other bartenders. I kind of didn't like that other bartenders were always a little bit separate from the game though. I wanted to get mine involved a little bit more in what was happening in the story. So I like the idea that Anna was coming to his town. It's a quiet little town and he knows more about the people and what's going on with the witches and disappearances around there. But as Anna starts to show that she's a lot more courageous and willing to do things than the townsfolk who have grown a little bit lazy and accustomed to the evil that's around them, he starts to warm up to her a little bit more, and he's growing in his own little way because of his interactions with Anna. So I like that. I think when Anna's quest is all said and done, there's definitely more to that story that I can see. I would love to do another Anna's quest. It's not just Anna either though. I don't know where I'm meant to go with that. There's lots of stories I'd love to do. I mean, I do know there's stuff that I really want to do, but I don't know. I have to wait and see. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the future holds.